Hello, everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. And I'm here for another video on watching AI videos so you don't have to, plus the series within the series on some forgotten dishes from the 70s. So we covered side dishes, main dishes. I know there's more. We didn't get them all covered. And then today it's about, it was actually called 25 Forgotten Poor Man Desserts. So these have not all been forgotten, maybe a few of them. I narrowed it down to 20 because some of them were repeats from the side dishes, such as the Watergate salad and the ambrosia. Those were a couple of the ones that were already mentioned in the side dish video, because I kind of see them that way. They're those dishes that could be a dessert or a side dish. It's called a salad, so you think of a side dish, but it's a sweet dish, so it could be a dessert. Goes either way. So I figure I'll cut those ones off because I already talked about them. It seems like there was a couple more like that. And also repeats, because AI is really good, these AI videos, about repeating the same thing with slightly different wording. So there was that too. And by the way, any of you recognize these, put them in comments down below. And if you have your own version of doing something, I'm just going to share the very basics like I normally do. And yeah, just share your experience or any other poor man's desserts that you remember from the 70s and maybe still make. So number one is no-bake cookies. I obviously remember no-bake cookies, and people still make them today. Just chocolate, peanut butter, oats, and or coconut. They're pretty good. I like no-bake cookies. I've never made them no, I think I did make them one time. And by the way, if you're listening to this, because I'm not going to be sharing full recipes, I'm just giving you guys ideas. If you want to try something different, new, or resurrect some other old recipes that haven't been used in a while, you can always go look any of these up online. You can find recipes to any of these. So tapioca pudding was a very common, very inexpensive type of dessert and very easy to make. Again, I don't remember if I've made tapioca pudding. I think I might have when I was very young, like maybe in my very early teens or before that. It's pretty good. I'm curious how many people really like tapioca pudding. I wouldn't say it was my very favorite thing, but it was good. This was one of the first desserts I got, along with making homemade pies, that in my early teens. I found it in my mom's old recipe book and started making. That was apple brown Betty. Oh my goodness, one of our favorite desserts to make. And the funny thing is I haven't made this in a long time. I've made it since we've been married, but usually it's apple pie I'm making. I think it's because Patrick likes pies better than he likes fruit crisp type things. For me, when I made it, you poured the orange juice over the apples, and then you made your topping. It was like a blend of sugar and some spices and flour and butter. You cut that in and then you sprinkled it over the top, and then you baked it until it was brown. This one said breadcrumbs. I never used breadcrumbs, and it didn't say anything about orange juice, but that's what I did. And we loved it. I especially love that topping with all the butter. That's what made it so good. So I'm also curious on this one if people did breadcrumbs for this instead of that topping like I'm talking about. See, now when I do a topping like that, I usually, for any kind of fruit crisp, I like to use buckwheat flour and oats, but I still do the butter and the sugar and the spices in there. Number 3, pineapple upside down cake. I honestly cannot remember if I've ever made this, but typically in the 70s and 80s, probably still today, most people will just use like a cake mix, because I've shared several times about how in the 70s, that was when a lot of this convenience food really started getting pumped out. And so, people would just use like a cake mix, and then you put your cherries and your pineapple slices on the bottom of the pan, and your cake mix goes over the top, and then you bake it and flip it. And now you got this pretty cake with the pineapple and cherries. Now, I really like pineapple upside down cake, but Again, I don't remember if I've ever made it, but if I ever do make it, I would definitely use cake mix that I made from scratch. I don't buy box mixes, and you don't have to either, and that would make it more frugal. Now, the thing I thought was kind of funny about calling this a poor man's dish. Now, I don't know what canned pineapple was back then, but it's not one of your cheaper fruits. So I don't really consider anything with pineapple or certain other tropical fruits as being a poor man's thing. And not everybody has that in their cabinet. I don't. I don't have canned pineapple on hand. Okay, so then there was another one called icebox cake. Let me read my horrible handwriting with my glasses. Icebox cake. Who remembers this one? So it was graham crackers layered with whipped cream and then stored in the fridge overnight. And you could layer it with fruit or put fruit on top, but as it soaked in the refrigerator overnight, the graham crackers would soak up the whipped cream and basically kind of become a cake, a super easy way to make a cake. So some of these I see more as not just poor man's as in financially poor, but you don't have a lot of time. So icebox cake. Now this one, I think I've had it, but I've never made it. And it's called dump cake. So it was cherry pie filling, which of course you can make your own, pineapple, dry cake mix over the top of that, and then thin slices of butter over the top of that. And then you bake it and everything just kind of soaks together. Basically, you're just dumping a bunch of stuff in the pan and you're baking it. I know I've had this before somewhere. Somebody made it and it was really good, but super duper simple. Lemon lush. So this was also done in layers. So you had like a pecan, I think it's supposed to say pecan shortbread, but I think it just pretty much any kind of shortbread, cream cheese whipped with powdered sugar. And then you had lemon pudding and whipped cream, and then you chill. There's no baking involved. Now, I don't know if I've ever had a lemon lush, but my sister makes these every now and then. She made, for our last family thing last summer, she made a peanut butter chocolate one. She got peanut butter Oreos and crushed those. That was the shortbread. And yeah, I know they're not the healthiest kind, but it was delicious. And she also has done the butterscotch one. So one of the other reasons for doing these kind of videos, especially from the 70s, is to say there are better ways. You don't have to go with the instant stuff that usually has a bunch of garbage in it. Like the Cool Whip, you can just get heavy whipping cream, whip it up. It's easy to do. You just got to keep an eye on it and don't over whip if you don't want it to turn into butter. Moving on, there was the banana pudding. I know that I've never made it, but I know people have made it. Now, going more old-fashioned with this, the new fashion way would be to use instant banana pudding. But normally it was just made with layers of custard, whipped cream, Nilla wafers, and then topped with a meringue. I don't remember it necessarily being topped with a meringue, but I'm sure you could make your own like vanilla cookies and then layer that. Obviously, your homemade whipped cream, your homemade custard, and of course, bananas. Now, here's one I used to make when the kids were young, and that was a Jell-O poke cake. So again, back when I used to buy Jell-O. But again, you could make your own gelatin, flavor it your own way, and do the same idea. You just make your basic cake. And usually you're going to do a white cake in this case, because this is important, especially if your Jell-O has any color to it, which preferably it does. Let's say you're going to make a raspberry Jell-O or something like that. And then I would use a chopstick to get bigger holes. And then after you bake the cake, you poke holes all through the cake on the top. I go clear down to the bottom usually. And then you pour your gelatin unset over the top. It's got to be in the pan, in the baking pan still. You chill it And then that Jello goes down into the cake and it adds that nice, wonderful flavor to the cake. And then when you cut the cake, you get these pretty slices. Again, these are things you could actually do from scratch. Get yourself some good, healthy beef gelatin without any flavor in it, obviously. And you could mix it with your own homemade raspberry juice or other kind of juice instead of water. And then you're going to get that flavor and that color. Dirt pudding. This was one for sure I looked up because I'm like, I don't remember this one for sure. I remember this one becoming popular in the 80s, not in the 70s. And I was right when I looked it up, this mostly because of the gummy worms. So you had a chocolate pudding with Cool Whip layered, crushed Oreos on top. So you had chocolate pudding layered with Cool Whip, or whipped cream is better. And then they topped it with crushed Oreos to look like dirt. And then they stuck the gummy worms in there. People would like put them in clean, obviously, new pots, like for flowers, flower pots. And then, you'd have this dirt pudding with the gummy worms coming out of it. But gummy worms weren't a thing until the 80s. I don't know, maybe dirt pudding was in the 70s, but the gummy worms would have become a new addition later on because they didn't come out until I think it was 1981. Okay, then you had your no-bake cheesecake. I've only made cheesecake from scratch, but this is a no-bake method where you just mix your cream cheese with sweetened condensed milk, maybe a little bit of lemon juice. This was, I think, the standard way to do it. The lemon juice kind of helped with the overall flavor. And then you whipped it all together and then chilled it in a graham cracker crust, which is easy to make a graham cracker crust yourself, by the way. And then you could top it with anything you wanted. There was also another one in there where they called Cherry Delight that was made pretty much the same way, except for you put canned cherry pie filling on top. I think my numbers are off. I wrote 10 and then I erased it and then wrote 11 and wrote the same thing in there, it looks like. So I may only have 19. But if you count the Cherry Delight and then the lemon no-bake cheesecake, then that would make 20. So this next one, I haven't heard of it. Again, another one of those I'm curious if anyone's heard of, and it was called a wacky cake. It was another one of these simple where you kind of like the dump cake, but it would be good for those who are vegan because there's no eggs, no milk or butter. Basically, you just added all your dry ingredients into the pan. You made little like wells, and you used one for vinegar, and you had baking powder in the mix. One for vinegar, one for, what was it? Vinegar. Did I write it down? Oh, darn it. I didn't write it down. I didn't write down all the details. But anyway, there was 3 little wells that you put these stuff in. And then it seems like, and then they poured hot water over the top. I don't think they mixed it. They just poured hot water over the top and then baked it. And apparently it turned out really good. So anyone, share with me if you've heard of wacky cake or made it. Okay, next one was oatmeal cake. So basically a spice cake with quick oats and coconut frosting. This sounds super good. This sounds like something I would really like. I also really liked spice cake. Anything that wasn't chocolate cake, pretty much, I liked. And there was a chocolate cobbler, thin layer chocolate cake, and then you sprinkled dry cocoa powder and sugar. You scattered it over the batter. And another one where you pour boiling water over the entire thing, no stirring. And the pictures I saw looked really rich and yummy. This one also sounds good to me. It was called prune cake. Don't know that I've ever had it, but prunes simmered and mashed into spice cake batter with a buttermilk glaze. It's the next one I'm going to read that comes from 1928. And it was called tomato soup cake. And the tomatoes in the cake activated the baking powder to get a good rise. And you couldn't taste the tomatoes in it. I thought that was kind of interesting. But yeah, I guess the recipe originally came from 1928, carried over into the 70s, and then finally you just didn't hear about it anymore. The next one is rice pudding. So there you go. There's the rice pudding. This would definitely be one that you call a poor man's dish because it's just rice simmered in whole milk, sugar, vanilla, cinnamon. Sometimes raisins were added, which sounds a lot like the next one, which I have made, which is an excellent way to use up your dried out ends of your bread, and that is bread pudding. So a similar idea, you chop your bread up into pieces. You can add, it was really common to add raisins, but you don't have to if you don't like raisins and stuff. And then milk, sugar, vanilla, spices, and then you just bake it. I've only made it one time. I need to make this again. So then another cake would be applesauce cake. So spice cake with applesauce to replace the fat. Now, replacing the fat in cakes with applesauce is a really good way to, reduce, if you want to reduce the fat or just use up applesauce. And plus apple is going to add a little more flavor to it than just your fats, like your cooking oils and stuff that a lot of people would use. In fact, the common cooking oils that were used like in the 70s and up were your less healthy cooking oils. So replacing those with applesauce would definitely make it more healthy. So especially if it's your own homemade applesauce from your own apples. And you know exactly what's in it. Another one called Magic Cookie Bars. Never heard of this one, but it was just super, super simple. Graham cracker crust. So you press the graham cracker into the pan like you would for a cheesecake, and then you poured over that sweetened condensed milk over the top of that. So you're layering it. You'd put butterscotch and or chocolate chip, and then shredded coconut, and then walnuts. I guess you baked it. Yeah, I think you baked it. I forgot to write that little tip down, but look it up. Magic Cookie Bars. If you made any of these, what are your own little tweaks that you would do with these recipes? So this is kind of fun because we have to learn from people of all ages that have been there, done that. So Dream Bars was the last one. Similar to the Magic Cookie Bars, it's a shortbread base instead of graham cracker. So a shortbread base, eggs, brown sugar, vanilla, nuts, and coconut poured over the top. So this mixture of all these poured over the top. So very, very similar, and it sounded really good as well. Anyway, so I'm gonna go, and I hope you all have a great rest of your day. And thanks again for coming in. Take care, and God bless. Bye.